Hey there, this is GreenCarGeek. I'm Julius, and this series is EVStories. This one is about Joel. Joel is the creator behind the EV Geek podcast and was a great guest. What was planned to be just a 30-minute interview turned into an hour-and-a-half conversation, covering a wide range of EV-related topics. This is the edited cut. The rest is going to appear in a future video. I really enjoyed our conversation and want to extend my appreciation to Joel for joining me to share his story. One note, just a quick thing to say that you can catch the latest videos 1 week before they go live on YouTube, get the latest updates on the channel, EV-related news, and more, even chat with me directly with a pledge to become a subscriber on Substack at greencargeek.com. Let's enjoy Joel's EV story. Let's bring in Joel. All right.
There we go.
Hey, Joel. We'll edit out any expletives. So you're located where, Joel?
So I'm located in the heart of Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Very nice. Now, have you always been? Is it Arkansonian? Would that be correct?
It's called
Arkansan.
Arkansan.
Arkansan. Wow.
Close.
My apologies to all Arkansans for butchering the plural of Arkansas. Anywho, very awesome that you happened to join us this evening. I really appreciate you being on tonight to talk about EVs and your EV journey. Let's first talk about what you're currently doing. You're running the EV Geek podcast, and can you tell me a little bit about it and what you guys focus on?
Sure. So, during COVID, a lot of people had times on their hands, a lot of times on their hands, especially for me, because my main job is I'm in education. So for about 5 or 6 months, we were home. I still worked, but I worked from home. I was transitioning between 2 jobs, so I was kind of finishing one up, starting another one. So I did have some time on my hands at home. So I had been an EV owner probably for about a year, and before that, I used to just watch, podcasts. I'd watch, Cal O'Connor, Out of Spec podcast, listen to those every day, things like that. And I needed something to kind of occupy my time during COVID because I was starting to go stir crazy. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to, start a podcast, so see how it works. And I wanted to kind of base the podcast on people who are learning stuff while I was learning along with it, because I cannot spat off every single spec of every single EV that's out there. That's not me. And the nice thing about our podcast is we just kind of learn as we go along. So we may get in a car and we may not know anything about it. We learn along with our viewers. So sometimes we get stuff right and sometimes we get stuff wrong. So I wanted to kind of be pure and authentic in that way. So I did about 3 or 4 episodes originally, probably about 4 years ago, and it was audio only, and I didn't have the right equipment and I didn't have enough background knowledge to start that yet. So I kind of put it on hold for a year. And during that time, I became the president of the Tesla Owners Club of Arkansas, and kind of got involved more into the EV landscape, hooked up with, EV car dealership here in Little Rock, learn more about them, learn more about EVs through them, and kind of built my knowledge. And then exactly about 13 months ago, I decided to relaunch the podcast. I had the equipment, had everything I needed, decided to relaunch the podcast. And actually one of my first guests was Sebastian Clark, who's now one of my co-hosts. I've known him through local events here in Little Rock. He comes to, EV Cars and Coffee and things like that. And the nice thing about Sebastian is he is real tech savvy when it comes to reviews. So you mention a car, he knows all the tech features about it. So that helps out a lot. So he's kind of the techie person on the podcast. And I'm just kind of there, I guess, just to smile and do stuff like that. No, but he's the techie person on the podcast, so we work really well together and things like that. But yeah, and then that kind of just took off from there. We were doing just, a couple videos here and there. We would do mostly ownership reviews, things like that, and then it kind of took off with dealer reviews. So we actually tapped into the Arkansas dealership networks out here, which takes a lot of work, a lot of boots on the ground, a lot of emails. Because one thing about the car industry is it's always changing. The person you talk to 1 month, the next month they're not there. They've went somewhere else. They're no longer in the car business. So it's still a grind. And we started getting into reviewing EVs from car dealerships with the plug is we let them know, hey, we're going to be honest about our reviews. We'll let you know the good and bad. We're not going to totally trash your car. We're going to be brutally honest about the reviews, but also you're going to get some free publicity out of it too. We'll include your name in the podcast. We'll include you in the description. And basically it's free advertisement for you, and it's a great way for us to review EVs. And we have not had a dealership tell us no. So we have about 3 or 4 major car dealership chains here in Little Rock, and we have partnered with all of them. So we basically have I have a contact at each dealership, whether it be a social media person, or whether it be a actual dealer. A lot of these dealerships now have EV specialists, which I think is pretty cool. And we just tap into them and we say, hey, listen, we're going to be out and about Saturday. Do you have? We like to review these 2 cars, and they say, sure, come in. And sometimes they have them ready for us, sometimes they don't. And the podcast is kind of taken off from there. We have guests on. We do a weekly news episode, and we've had a really great year. Today we just crossed about 325,000 views, which is awesome. And we just keep plugging along. So we got a schedule made out for next week for some cars to review and some other content as well. So that's how it all started. We just hope to continue this movement.
That's amazing.
Educate people about EVs. Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. And starting from scratch. I myself had the idea during COVID, but ended up doing other things, and got into this myself just out of just a love of cars. Got our first EV. But before I talk about my EV story, and I don't intend to do that here because that's not what this is about. It's about your EV story. So if you wouldn't mind, what brought you to purchase your first electric vehicle, and what kind was it?
So I've always had it's funny because a lot of guys that are into EVs are into cars. I was never into cars growing up. I've always been into tech. Like I love software. I love tech features, and that's what gets me excited. I grew up I'm from Western Pennsylvania, grew up in a steel mill town. So that's, my parents drove, used cars their entire life, and cars that were 4 and 5 years old, sometimes 10 years old. So we never had any really nice vehicles in the house. So, but I've always loved tech. I've done a little bit of work. I'm in education with computer science and programming, things like that. So that's kind of like my passion is around that. So my buddy that I've known since probably, my friend Bobby, I've known since probably 5th grade when I moved to South Carolina. He's always been into tech. He's a programmer. He works for a major company running their apps and their websites. And he was one of the first people to purchase a Model 3. So went home every time I go home to visit South Carolina in the summer, I always stop by Bobby's. We always go out for some drinks, kicking, things like that. So he let me drive his Model 3. And he was telling me about it, and that was probably back in 2018, 2019, right when he first got it. And it was a Model 3. And so and I was like, this is awesome. Like, how do you charge? And he kind of answered all the questions for me, showed me how he charged, went to supercharger, let me drove. And that instant torque, I was like, oh my gosh, I need one of these. So I came back over from that trip, and my wife looked at me and she says, you're going to get one of those one day. And I said, yeah, I'm probably going to get one of those one day. And she said, okay, well, we'll see. So so about 2 years after that, I had an opportunity because for my work and education, I have to visit schools a lot. So, and I have a 25-minute drive to my office every day. Plus, I got to drop kids off at school. And I had a Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck. Loved it. Always wanted a truck. Got a truck. But I was putting like $65 every 5 days in gas. And I told my wife, I said, listen, this isn't logistically possible for us to spend, $400 or $500 a month on me, just myself in gas, and another $200 a month for you in gas. We're talking about like $700 a month in gas. I said, that's a car payment. I said, we can't cut it anymore. So she says, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, let's look at a Model 3. So went online and purchased a brand new Model 3. Unfortunately, with state laws here in Arkansas, I had to drive the whole way to St. Louis to pick it up.
Wow.
Yeah, we can talk about that later if you want. So I had to drive to St. Louis to pick it up. So drove the family to St. Louis, drove it back, loved it. My wife actually got car sick on the way back because she wasn't used to the regen. And I wasn't used to driving with regen. And I actually got a little sick on the way back too. So had the Model 3 for about a year. And after a year, me and my boys went to visit some family in Western Pennsylvania. So let's do a road trip, in a Model 3. It's the first time ever doing it. 2-day road trip, Little Rock to Pittsburgh. It was like 17, 18 hours, very long 2 days. And I came back from my trip. She was like, how is it? And I said, it was great. She's like, how did it drive? I said, it was great. I said, but we need something bigger. I said, this is not going to cut it. This is the car we're going to use for family trips. A Model 3 is not going to cut it. So my buddy who owns Evolve Auto here in North Little Rock, Arkansas, went to him, and at that time, that's when car prices were stupid. So I ended up getting like $6,000, $7,000 over what I purchased the car for about a year ago. But then again, I paid probably $7,000 or $8,000 more for my Model Y than what I should have too. So got into a Model Y, and then a few months later, my wife decided she was going to get in the EV world too. So she got herself a Kia EV6. We are an all EV family, with the exception of my 16-year-old son, who we just bought a gas car for, and he wanted an EV, but I said, hey, listen, we can't do the charging shuffle at home every night. You know, we have a 2-car garage, and I said we're not going to worry about pulling one in and taking one out to have to charge. So I said, you get a gas car. But luckily, you know, since I have this relationship with these dealers, I was able to get a real good deal on a little Mazda 3, little car for him just to go to and from school and to and from work in. But, you know, I'm not against gas cars. You know, I love gas cars. It serves a purpose. Like I tell everyone, EVs are not for everyone. They're not. If you're someone who has to drive 500-600 miles, you know, or every 2 or 3 days, EVs probably aren't right for you. If you're in an area where you don't have very good infrastructure, EVs may not be right for you. But I tell people every day, if you're a 2-car family, there's no reason why one of those cars can't be an electric vehicle. Because one of those cars is going to be a daily commuter. The other one, yeah, your Suburban, your van, your SUV, that's what you're traveling to and from the beach in or visit family in. But there's a car in that family that's just a commuter. That's going only 20, 30, 40 miles a day. And that could easily be an EV for you. You could save a whole lot of money doing that. So that's kind of like my journey into electric vehicles, kind of how we got started. That still have the Model Y, it's a 2020, still have the 22 Kia EV6, and we're rolling with those cars.
So I totally agree with you on EVs are not for everyone. And I totally agree with if you have 2 vehicles, one of them very well could be an EV. You were driving the truck for some distance, if I recall in the pre-interview, or do I have that wrong? So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was driving probably, you know, from where I live to my office at that time was 20 about 20 miles. I'd say 18 miles. But also, my kids go in the district that I work in. They don't go into the school district that we live in, because I've always worked in the school district. My kids, when I was in schools, they all just went to the same schools that I did. Yeah. So they build up friends and relationships. So I live north of Little Rock. My kids go to school west of Little Rock. So just them alone is a 19-mile drive to take them to and from school every day. So we're talking 40 miles just with them if I take them to and from school. Now, my office from their school is another 7 miles. So if you think about that, 20 there, 20 back, so that's 40, and you're talking about another 14. So I'm driving at the least, if I don't have to visit schools, 34, 20, 40, what is that? 64 miles, 64 miles a day. I guess that's pretty bad. So I'm driving over 60 miles a day on a good day.
Yeah.
Now, if I got to go to other parts of the city in the south or in the east where I got to drive more miles, I could easily put 75 to 100 miles on my car a day. And with a pickup, that's just not doable. So I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I mean, I could, but I was just dishing out money and gas, and I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah, we had a similar experience. We had an Acura MDX. We have a single daughter, and to your point, it's not just the back and forth to work. It's not just the back and forth to the school. It's then after school, whatever things you have to do after that. There's groceries, there's food, there's you name it. Maybe dropping the kid off for soccer practice or some kind of instrument class somewhere. So that all adds up, and over time that could be quite considerable in the cost. Your $60 there was probably roughly our $80 to $90 here in California. And that just becomes unsustainable. And then having 2 gas cars, multiply that by 1.5, and you're kind of in that boat. And so it just made sense. It makes a lot of sense to use that second car as just maybe the runner, the runabouts, that kind of stuff, the school run, and and if you've got a long journey, or if you're a salesperson, like you mentioned, I totally agree. Maybe these days, now, as opposed to, we got our first car in 21, infrastructure was nowhere near what it is now. I think it's probably almost doubled, almost 3 times what it used to be. And we have all kinds of infrastructure growing out with Iona, with Mercedes-Benz and their agreements with ChargePoint, I believe it is, or EVgo. You got GM Energy putting out theirs. You've got Walmart now putting out their own charging network on top of the EAs that are already in many of the Walmart parking lots from back in the day. So, I agree with you completely there. You mentioned something, if I can get into it really quick. You mentioned something when you first got the Model 3 about a car sickness from the region. Can you just briefly describe that for me?
So, if you're not familiar with EVs, EVs have regen braking. So that means you let off the gas, it sends the energy back to the motors. So you're not losing, you're not coasting. So when you take off the paddle, you automatically, or accelerate, you automatically, come to stop within a few seconds. It's not a coast, which if I'm driving my son's gas car every once in a while, I blow through a couple stop signs doing that, not expecting that. So yeah, it's a weird feeling. So but sometimes, especially in those cars, it can be very motion sickness. It's almost like riding on a roller coaster and doing a lot of, really quick starts and stops with that regen braking. And Teslas have very aggressive regen braking, and you can't really set it. My wife's car, her EV6, she has different levels.
Yes.
She keeps it on the lowest level because she likes to drive her EV6 like a car. So she uses the brake all the time because that's just how she likes to drive. Same thing with my son. When he was learning to drive, he refused to learn in my Tesla because of the regen braking. But I told him, like, after 10 minutes, you get used to it. But I'm the worst driver in the world and I've always been this way, of taking my foot off and on the accelerator. And when you're in an EV, you notice that drastically, because as soon as you come off, that car starts slowing down, and that it starts recouping that energy and sending it back to the battery, and things like that. So that's something I had to get used to. And on that trip, I was kind of testing it out a lot, at 75, 80 miles an hour from, down I-55. And it just got a little motion sickness, got a little queasy feeling in the stomach, which after that trip never happened again. It was just something I think I had to get used to, or my bodies have gotten used to. When I take people in my car, they never complain about it. But it's a really cool way to save on some of that energy while you're driving, for it to, for the way for those motors to send it back to the battery to get a little bit of that energy back.
Yeah, and just to clarify for those watching who are considering purchasing an EV, not all EVs automatically go into regen braking. We have an Audi e-tron, and I used to own a Volkswagen e-Golf. Those by default just coast. If you let off the accelerator, you do have with the e-tron the ability to do 2 levels of recharge or regen by pulling the left paddle. And the e-Golf had a shifter more because it was basically a compliance car. It was a gas car converted to an electric vehicle to meet California standards, where it would just coast. But if you wanted to, you could use level 1, level 2, or B mode, which enabled regen all the time. But again, you had some control over it. So not all these cars do it. I own a Kia Niro now, Kia Niro EV, and you have 3 or 4 levels of regen that are automatically on whether you turn it on. Coming from the Volkswagen, I find it very odd, and I fight with it every time because I prefer to coast. I'm not one who prefers to do the regen. I will use it to slow the car down and bring it to a stop, but not to actually have it running all the time. I prefer to coast downhill as opposed to, and just adjust my speed using the regen paddles as opposed to using the brake. So, correct me if I'm wrong, I think most vehicles will, if you apply the brake, the first thing they do is they do not activate the actual physical brakes. They actually activate the regen and start that process first. And then as you get closer to saying come to a complete stop, then they engage the actual physical brakes. So you do save even more now with not having to pay for brake pads and rotors.
I took my car in for just a regular tire rotation. I said, hey, while you're there, my Model Y is almost 100,000 miles. I put a lot of miles on that year in the car. And I said, hey, just while you're in there, just scan the brakes for me. And he got everything back together. He's like, your brakes look brand new. He's like, they're barely any wear on them. I'm like, really? After 100,000 miles and almost 5 years? He's like, yeah, man, I can't even tell that. I mean, they're really good looking. And as you said before, my wife's Kia EV6 is the same. It has iPedal driving, which is full regen, but you have to set it to that. When you get in, it defaults to like level 2, and in my wife's car, it doesn't remember it. So even though we have profile set, it's always going to default to level 2, no matter who's in the car. It's a little cumbersome for me, but for her, it doesn't matter. But when we're on long trips, if we're driving on the interstate, I will turn regen off because there's sometimes on the interstate, I do want to coast. If I'm getting up behind a car or something, I do want to coast. So I'll just turn it off then if I can on my wife's car. But with the Tesla, you really don't have that option. You got to have it on.
Yeah, so there's no one way all these cars work, and this is for everybody who might be watching. Again, our focus here is to try to talk to those folks who are considering an EV Maybe this is going to be their first one, or maybe they are just interested in EVs in general and are not aware that all these cars have a little bit, to use Doug DeMuro's quirks and features that you you need to be aware of.
We got in to review the Porsche Taycan, and it has regen or one pedal driving, but it does not stop at all when you left off that.
That is a Volkswagen thing.
It's a Volkswagen, and that's what my buddy Sebastian said. He's like, it's a Volkswagen thing. I was like, it is. He goes, yep, that's a Volkswagen thing. I was like, yeah, it doesn't. I mean, we just kept going. We got to the stop sign.
Yeah, they come to a crawl, but it will keep rolling. They also the Audi, and my wife just can't stand it. It does offer auto hold. You can enable it, and it's always on, which is when you brake, you can take your foot off the brake, and the car will hold itself, whether you're on a hill, whether you're on a flat surface. However, if you don't engage auto hold, the car will creep in reverse, and so you might come to a stop or not fully stop, and if you don't have auto hold on, it will actually, like a car, if it were in neutral, will start dropping back. Or if you're in a manual shift car with a clutch and everything, it might drop back. So something to be aware of. Each car has its own little idiosyncrasies. It just takes, like you said, getting used to it in a matter of time. Yep. For you, it was almost like I guess the sickness was almost like a seasickness, your first time on a boat, and this is unusual to my system, and it tries to figure it out. And that might happen for some people. I can't say I've ever experienced that. And that could be because I used to work at a college campus, and I ran AV equipment all around. And had an electric cart to do that. And so I was quite familiar with the experience from day one. So, but it's been great. Now, you bought the Tesla in 2020, 2019?
Let me see. No, not 2019. I think I bought it I think it was a 2020. So I bought it in 2020, and then, or did I buy it in 20? Yeah, I think I bought it in 21.
Okay.
Traded it in 22, and in 22 I got a 2020 Model Y. So the Model Y was 2 years old when I got it. So yeah.
And the Y is the larger of those vehicles. For those who may not know, the Model 3 is the smaller of the two. They're both well, the Model 3 is a sedan, not the SUV. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, and
yeah,
then
the Model 3 is the sedan, and if you want to call the Model Y an SUV in very loose terms, that it's a
larger Model 3, with more space. The X is it's the Model S that comes with the jump seats in the back. Do they still do that or no?
I know the X seats come with the jump seats in the back.
The X does come with jump seats in the back.
But unless you are under the age of 4, you are not.
Yeah, they're not for an adult. These are for.
When people say, well, I need a Model Y for a 3-row, and I'm like, well, how old are your kids? Like, well, my kids are 10, 8, and 5. I'm like, that third row is not going to. You're not going to, unless you want someone laying back there. That third row doesn't serve any purpose, and a lot of it's just it doesn't work. So yeah. Take a look at it. I think the Rivian is a 3-row, if I remember correctly. The R1S. Yep. You might want to also take a look at the Volvo. I think the what is the XC90 or whatever they EX90. There's the
EX90.
Kia EV6. There's the Ioniq 9 now.
The Ioniq 9. The Kia EV9. The Kia EV9.
And we just reviewed the Vistic from Cadillac, which is also a 3-row.
Yeah.
EV.
Yep.
So that was very nice too. It's like a baby Cadillac. So
yeah, that's a nice brand. I'm actually seeing a couple of car shows we attended over Earth Day, and I could not stop looking at the Cadillac. It was in that beautiful blue that they have.
Yep. I will tell you what, we just got done, and we're actually doing an episode about it in a couple days. We just got done reviewing all the Cadillac EVs. So Lyriq, Optic, Vistic, Escalade. And out of after every group we've reviewed, Cadillac has their stuff together for some reason. I don't know what it is. Just with styling, which is the way you interact with the tech features. Yes, it's a GM car and everything about it's GM, but just how they designed it and styled it, I was very impressed with the Optic. I mean, that could literally be my next EV for what you get for the price. And they've really come a long way with their electric vehicles. For being new to the game and kind of maybe late to the game, those are some solid, luxury EVs out there.
I believe they just dropped the Optic V for 26 coming out. I think that landed today.
Performance Optic, yes.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah. So let's get back to the Model 3, your original purchase. Sure. At the time, there weren't many cars available. Nope. Probably the Audi. What else might have been out? I don't think Volvo had anything out. Was the Mach-E available?
You don't know? No, Chevy Bolt.
The Bolt.
You know, Nissan Leaf would have been available at that time. That's probably it.
Right. So there weren't many options. Yeah.
Nope.
I know 2019 is when the ID4 and the Audi e-tron, the large e-tron, the Q4 didn't show up till I guess 2021, somewhere in that window.
Yeah. I believe here in the States, the Audi was the first one to come out with the legacy automakers. Was the first one I think to come out with an EV besides the Bolt. So yeah.
Yeah, and then later, I think it was 2020, something like that, when the ID4 and the Q4 showed up. So let's get to since you didn't have many choices with the 3, a couple of years later, the landscape changed. There were more options available. Had you taken a look at any of the other options out there, the Mach-E, the ID4, the Q4?
So we kind of briefly looked at them, but my main issue was, at that time, charging infrastructure. So I knew this was going to be a car, especially because right after I got mine, my wife got her EV6. And I knew with the charging infrastructure how it was in 2022 that we were not going to be able to take our car on road trips. It just wasn't viable. To where we have to go through northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, the way we go home, it's just not viable for us to take our car because there's not charging infrastructure. And there's barely at that time enough Tesla charging infrastructure for us to make the trip home. So, but we were able to, and that's what I based my decision on, was the charging infrastructure. I didn't look at any other cars because at that time I knew if I wanted to charge, if I was out, if I needed to travel, EAs were there. EA to I didn't have the option of other EVs at Tesla superchargers at that time. Okay. So that's why I decided to stick with the Model Y.
You were mentioning that the Electrify America network was not, and I would agree with you there, and especially around the Midwest. I think the Midwest has suffered greatly in the whole EV build out and rollout. Let's take a second and talk about that for a minute, if you don't mind. Being in the Midwest, being in Arkansas, being in Arkansas, have you seen an increase or an improvement in not just the charging infrastructure, but reliability?
So reliability, I would say, is hit and miss. I mean, we still only have, with EA, like 5 stations in Arkansas, I believe. So so for EA, that's to cover the whole state. We only have 5, and we don't have that many more Tesla superchargers right now, and they weren't reliable. So a lot of times we'll make trips from Little Rock to Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is about a 3.5-hour drive. I know there's a Tesla supercharger in Fayetteville. They have an EA up there in Fayetteville. But the one EA between here and Fayetteville was always kind of, it was a crapshoot. You never knew. So for so many years, we wanted to take my wife's EV6, even just on a weekend trip to Fayetteville, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't trust the charging infrastructure. Because I didn't want to get to an EA station and not be able to charge. And between Little Rock and Arkansas, between Little Rock and Fayetteville, you literally have 2 Tesla supercharger stations and 1 EA at that time when we started doing it. So I had to take the Tesla because I knew where to stop for Tesla. I knew it was going to be reliable. I knew about 20 minutes down the road from Tesla, from the one where I stop at Ozark in Van Buren, there's another one there. I have to miss a couple exits, but it's there in case I need it. But that was the issue that we had. Now, I will tell you this. In the last year, I think the EAs have become more reliable, and I'm glad they have stuck to focusing, instead of rolling out new stations like they were going to, is fixing their old ones, which is what they needed to do. And I'm glad they have focused on that, because the ones here in Arkansas are old. We don't have any new EA stations, but they're old. But as you mentioned before, we have some new players coming to the game. We have, I think, about 2 or 3 now Pilot J's in the state. One here south of Little Rock, and I believe another one is going to open up somewhere else. I can't remember where. Those are great. They're pricey. They're about 68 cents a kilowatt here in Arkansas, which is, for us, is expensive, considering Tesla supercharger stations are about 35 cents. EAs are in the mid 40s to low 50s. I think they're a little bit higher now, but it's just outrageously expensive. We do have a couple of those. We actually have a guy here we're good friends with named JT. He actually opened up with his own money, his own 2 supercharger stations here, one in Little Rock and one in Hot Springs.
And if I could interrupt, when you say supercharger, you're saying Tesla superchargers.
Sorry, not superchargers. Or
you mean DC fast chargers?
No, DC fast chargers. Sorry, thank you for correcting me. Yeah, he opened up his own DC fast charging station in Little Rock. So he has 4 charge point DC fast chargers there. He has a free wire station, which is, free wire's no longer around, but there's still someone supporting it that he's had some issues with. But that's kind of like the center of Little Rock. And that's great. He stays pretty busy. Then he just opened up another one about a year and a half ago down in Hot Springs, because Hot Springs has no DC fast charging. And it's a destination area. It's a lot of people go to Hot Springs. It's a very touristy area. And at that time, you had level 2 chargers at some hotels and some parking lots, but there was no option to DC fast charge in Hot Springs. And that's kind of preventing a lot of the stuff here in Arkansas, because people in Arkansas, what do they like to do? They want to go out. They want to go to rural Arkansas. They want to go float to Buffalo. They want to go up to the mountains. They want to get out, and there's no infrastructure or areas to support that. And that's the issue that we have. So if I wanted to take my family up to the Buffalo River and back, Buffalo River is probably about a 2-hour drive, I'm guessing, and back. Now I have a DC fast charger to stop at, but it's 35 minutes from my house. So I have to stop at that one and then go the rest of the way, because there's nothing else along that road. And it's a struggle here with DC fast charging. And I think that is probably what has prevented some of our adoption issues here, especially in the South, is we just don't have the infrastructure. You could probably go outside in your house right now where you live in California, and in 25, 30 minutes, find as many DC fast chargers that we have in the entire whole state of Arkansas.
Yeah, we might be able to actually do that in 10.
You might do that in 10, yes. So, yeah.
Yeah. Although I have to do that. I have to go and test this. I know Kyle Connor has come out here and complained a lot about charging in Los Angeles. I can't say I've experienced that, but I don't live in downtown Los Angeles. We're about 30, 40 minutes away from Los Angeles itself. And I cannot say that there's been really ever an issue in our area, and we're kind of farther out from the downtown area. And so we've made several trips ourselves up the coast. I bought the e-Golf up near San Francisco and drove it all the way down here. That was a nice 12-hour journey. When there was only EA chargers, a couple charge points here and there. And then we took a trip up to Willamette in Oregon from where we're at. And we only counted one issue that entire trip. So, and that was 21, I believe, or mid 22. So still pretty young infrastructure at the time. Wasn't fully built out, or at least as built out as much as it is now. But let me ask you this. Since you've bought your EVs, do you see more EVs in your area, or is that still something that is kind of a nascent thing? There's not many.
No, we've actually seen a very big uptick here in EVs. I would say when I bought my Tesla in 2021, people would stop at red lights. You get the looks at red lights, like, what is that? Not sure what that is. People would come up and talk to you about them. I would say now, driving from my house north of Little Rock over to the west side of Little Rock every day, I probably see alone anywhere from 10 to 15 EVs just on my daily commute. So
wow.
As before, when I got my car, I would have probably seen 1, 2. And the nice thing is, it's not just Teslas now. Seeing a lot of Ioniq 5s. We see a lot of Mustang Mach-E's in this area. Surprisingly, we are in the South. We don't see a lot of truck EVs in the South here.
Which I understand.
Those people have not bought into that yet, which is understandable. I would love to have a truck, EV one day. But I don't use a truck for what its design purposes. It was just for me to have a truck EV. I don't haul, I don't tow. So it was just for me to drive a truck. So I don't need that aspect. So, but yeah, we're seeing an intake of EVs here, EV6s, things like that. A lot of Rivians on the road too here as well. I actually probably see more of the SUVs than the trucks.
Yeah, I see that more as the family hauler.
Yep. And the place where I take my kids to, the school that the area of the school where it's located is more of a middle upper class area too. So a lot of Rivians out there and things like that in that area. A lot of Cybertrucks in that area too as well. Cybertruck has not taken off here. There's probably
I don't think it's taken off anywhere.
I could tell you the 4 or 5 people in Central Arkansas who own a Cybertruck. I'd probably know every single one of them. So and that's it. So that's probably all that we have in Central Arkansas and things like that. But it's nice seeing more EVs on the road.
Yeah.
Even in Arkansas, which people thought, what it would be slow to adopt EVs. It is, but we're seeing them more on the road now. See more Equinoxes, more Blazers. We're seeing a lot of those. Not too much of the luxury EVs, so don't see a lot of, Porsche Taycans or, any of the BMWs or Mercedes. There are a few, but not as much as you would see from the Kia, the GM, the Rivians, the Ford, and Tesla.
Which, in my understanding, I think that kind of makes sense. These are not that there's anybody who's not worthy of a very expensive car, but they are expensive. They're still kind of pricey. I think 20. Well, my hope was that by 25, 26, we'd start seeing, and I still understand there are a couple of companies coming out with lower price, less expensive EVs, looking at Volkswagen with the ID2 All, or maybe even the ID1. There are still a couple other companies whose names I can't remember off the top of my head are looking to bring out stuff. Well, the Bolt's coming back. That's supposed to be coming back.
The Bolt's coming back. Our last news episode, Nissan's bringing back the Leaf. So they've redesigned the Leaf. It actually looks pretty cool. And according to the website, it's going to start at 28. So I don't know how true that's going to be, where they're built, how tariffs will affect it. But the Leaf that we drove and reviewed was $42,000. I could not justify how you could spend $42,000 on a Nissan Leaf, which is on about 10-year-old technology, and still using CHAdeMO as its charging infrastructure and no thermal cooling on the battery. I don't understand. You can pay $42,000, but they had that thing marked down to like $30,000. It was ridiculous.
What even at that price, to me, it's a bit
still
much.
Not, I would buy a Bolt over that any day. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and you get a fresh new battery if it's a used one.
Actually, Sebastian found a deal online from a car dealership with incentives. He found a Equinox for like $23,000.
Wow.
So yeah, he almost pulled the trigger on. He almost pulled the trigger on it, but it was just he wasn't ready to do it. So
yeah, for first-time EV owners, I hear a lot of folks with some great feedback on that Equinox that is out there, which is the basis, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong here. The Lyric. But there's just a lot of good stuff out there. Let's get into.
I think the Equinox is based off the Optique. And the Lyric and the Optique and the Lyric is based off the Blazer. So
there you go. Yes, the Blazer, Lyric are sisters, and the Optique. Yes. Yeah, you're right.
But it's funny looking at the Optique. It looks nothing, and that's what I like about it. It looks nothing like an Equinox. But it's funny that they're basically the same car. It's just really cool.
It's not what we encountered as at least as I grew up in the 80s. It was not badge engineered. Where basically you take the car, make a minor modification to the front fascia, minor modification to the rear fascia, and just put your badges on there. These are literally, even the Honda Prologue and the Acura ZDX are Chevy products based off of the same platform as the Lyric and the Blazer, but they don't look anything like any of those other products. So speaking about looks, and to get into the cars you have, what I would do on a local shoot here is I would be asking folks to tell me what was aside from charging, because you've mentioned that already, what other features about the Model 3, or more curious to me is the Kia EV6 that brought you to purchase those. If you wouldn't mind with the Kia EV6, let's start there.
Sure. So the Kia EV6 was totally my wife's purchase. She saw the Super Bowl ad, in 2022, and she's like, I gotta have that car. And here's the reason why she picked the EV6. And my wife has had Kias before, so but this is a tough jump for her. She was jumping from a Telluride to an EV6. So at that time, we had smaller kids. We had 3 rows, but didn't really use them. We only have 2 kids, so that third row was down a lot, unless we had company, and then we would put it up. If my parents or someone come in town, we put it up. And my wife likes familiarity. So she liked the EV6. And at the time in 2022, there still wasn't a lot of other options out there available. There were some more. We had the EV6, we had the Ioniq 9, we had the Mustang coming in, but there still wasn't a lot for her. And my wife's the kind of person, she doesn't like she's not a risk taker. So she knows Kia, she likes Kia, she saw the EV6, and she just likes how it's set up. And the nice thing about the EV6 is even on their lowest end models, you get a lot of luxury. So she has the Wind model, which is next to the lowest. It comes with heated and cold seats. That's the kind of stuff she likes. It comes with the function to memorize your seating arrangement when you go in. Those are the things that are interested to her. She could care less about the tech. She doesn't care about the 0 to 60 time. she doesn't care about any of that. She gets in, turns the car on, listens to satellite radio, and that's all she does with it. And she's familiar with it. It's a comfortable ride. And for her, the Kia EV6 drives more like a traditional gasoline-powered vehicle, and that's what she wanted. She wanted something that she was familiar, didn't have to worry about, oh my gosh, if the screen goes out, I'm not going to be able to know how fast I'm going or anything like that. She just wanted an electric car that drove like a regular car, and that's what the EV6 serves a purpose for here. And like I tell everyone, if I could take how the EV6 drives, suspension-wise and quiet-wise, and pair that with the technology of a Model Y, that would probably be like a perfect car. Because the Kia EV6, I love my Model Y. That thing is, the suspension on that thing is just, it's not good. I mean, you feel every single bump. And I don't know if it's because it's a 2020. It's loud. The suspension's not good. When you're in that EV6, you don't hear anything. It's a quiet ride. It's a smooth ride. And that's what she likes. That's what she wants. She doesn't care about tech features. She doesn't care about any of that. She just wanted a nice, comfortable car for her to drive.
And that was familiar with her as far as placement of turning stocks and information where she's going to find it and how to navigate the to get to the air conditioning controls. I believe that one does have some buttons in it, unlike most cars.
Yep. It has the weird toggle to where you have to on the display for like the air and the radio. You got to toggle between the two, which is
it's a little infuriating.
It's a little infuriating, but like I said, she doesn't change the radio station. So if she does it, she just does it on her steering wheel with the scroll. So it's always on AC, and she just toggles with the steering wheel, or she just brings it up on the screen and toggles with it on the screen. So that's not a big deal for her. And she liked it because being with the way we are in Arkansas. If we want to take our cars for service, we take our cars for Tesla. We got to drive 2.5 hours to Memphis. There is no local place for us to do that with. So it was just comfortable for her knowing, we have 2 Kia dealerships within a 15-mile, drive of us that she could take the car to if something happened. It just provided her some safety and security. She is looking at what her next car would be, so she has some thoughts about what theirs are going to be. So she's looking at the Rivian R2. And but I'll tell you what, this Hyundai Ioniq 9 has captured her eye, because I think her next car will be a 3-row. But that has captured her eye. So
that is a nice ride. I see a lot of them here in the area, and I was put off at first by the appearance, but it's grown on me over time. I got to be honest.
To me, it kind of reminds me of the Gravity. It looks like a minivan with doors, is what it looks like to me.
I would give you that.
Yeah.
On that, as far as you with the Model 3, you mentioned the suspension wasn't great, but the charging has been amazing. Was there any particular feature that you find that you can't live without, maybe with the Tesla?
So the one thing I noticed with the Tesla as compared to my other EVs that I own, and we just did a whole episode about, is just how it integrates with the app itself. Mm-hmm. Like, I can do anything I need to from that app. I can look at cameras, I can do software updates, I can unlock and do doors, and it's very intuitive. You don't have to reload. You don't have to pay for the feature like you do in the Kia. My wife has to pay $15 a month to have those accesses, which I think is just totally asinine. I don't know why manufacturers make you do that. They should just give you the app and let you do what you want to with it. And that's what Tesla does. Everything's within the app, and it's just integrated so well. And I guess that's why I compare it to Apple. Apple just integrates everything so well. If I'm sitting here on my phone and want to send something to my computer, I just I'll do like an AirDrop and it goes right there. Everything is saved, my music, from one device to the other. It just all integrates very well. And that's one thing I like about the Tesla. It just integrates well from the car into the app itself to do a lot of those things for you. I like the simplicity of the Tesla brand itself as well. I like just a single screen and everything being there. I hate, like my wife's Kia, we got to change some. I got to watch a YouTube video on how to change it. Like last time I took it into service, they didn't clear out the little service bulletin, so when I get it says, and I know there's probably something in the menus that I can do. In fact, I talked to my buddy, technically Jeff, who runs the Kia stuff. He's like, "Oh yeah, I got a video. I'll send it to you." But it's just little things like that it's just this little nitpicky things like that just bother the heck out of me with the Kia. Drives well, but it doesn't have the greatest sound system in the world. Some of the stuff is 4 and 5 screens down when you're trying to do it. It doesn't have. I like the acceleration of the Model Y. I like to get up and go. Kia EV6 has, all EVs have that instant torque, and that's what a lot of people, are surprised with, even if you get into something like an ID4 or a Kia EV6, it's not going to be great, but it's going to have that instant torque, which is awesome.
They've toned it. They've the step in as you hit the accelerator pedal. I do recall this understanding from the original Kia Niro and the new Kia Niro EV. The model change, I think, was 23. Where the first one just used to shred tires. No matter how you applied the accelerator, as gently as you could, it would still shred the tires, where you don't have that experience with the newer vehicle because they modified that tip in.
Yeah, totally agree. There is a little slight, I would say on Model Y, you hit it and go. With the Kia, there is that little slight pause or delay before it happens to prevent you from, it's a rear-wheel drive car, from preventing you from smoking tires, all the time. But heck, if you're driving a Model 3 Performance, I've seen people go through tires at 10, 12,000 miles because that's just the weight of the car and just the way they're accelerating off the line at red lights. It kills the tires.
Yeah, I think we leave ours in efficiency mode all the time.
Yep.
So yeah,
my wife keeps hers in eco mode or something like that. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So you see some new cars coming down the pipe. There are a few coming out that I know of. You have the Kia EV6, which is a wonderful car. I see a lot of those here. It's almost like a squat station wagon with a slant back. Do you find, where can I go next with this? Because I don't have a car to have you walk me around and show me what's going on there. Is there anything, let me go here. Is there anything that you would share with someone who's considering purchasing an electric vehicle, whether they're in the Midwest or out here, or basically anywhere in the United States? What do you find to be the most advantageous benefit that an EV offers you over a gas car?
So yeah, I mean, especially living here in the Mid-South or Midwest or South, I don't know what Arkansas is considered. Mid-South, I guess, I don't know. It's clearing up a lot of those misconceptions that people have. Like I'll stop at a supercharger station and I'll be charging, and the guy will be like, "How often do you have to charge?" And I'm like, "About every 2.5 hours." Like, really? Oh, I thought you had to stop every 100 miles. I'm like, no, I don't have to stop every 100 miles to charge. That's that used to be the fact with EVs, you'd have to stop every 100 miles to charge, but we're getting beyond that. I said I can go 2.5 hours, which is fine because I am in my late 40s and I cannot not go to the bathroom that long. And I have little kids who can't hold it that, I don't have little kids anymore. I have kids who have to get out every 2.5 hours. My back, it's not the old days where, I'm popping in my 5-speed Isuzu pickup truck and I'm driving 400, 500 miles before stopping. Yeah, I can't do that anymore. I won't be able to walk for 3 days if I did that. So I just tell people that. And it's just clearing up those misconceptions and letting people know that a lot of people don't know, the benefit about home EV charging. They still think that, you have to charge at DC fast chargers, superchargers, and you have to do that all the time. And my thing is no. I said my phone's like my cell phone. Before I go to bed at night, I plug my cell phone in, and when I get up the next morning, it's got a full charge. Same thing with my cars. I don't have to think about stopping at a gas station or doing any of that. I just plug my car in, and it has a full charge the next morning. And if I forget to do it, I still have enough to get me through another day. So it's not that big a deal. And it's just kind of clearing up those misconceptions for people. Like, you can do this. And I always tell people, you all want to check stuff first, because I had a relative who went out and got a hair up his butt and decided he was going to buy a Model 3, and then decided that he didn't have the panel capacity at his house to support a level 2 charger. So there were some workarounds he could have had to do, but he just said, I'm not doing it anymore, and eventually just sold back his Model 3 after about 4 or 5 months because it just didn't work out for him. So I would say buying an EV is not like an impulse buy of buying a regular car. A lot of people get up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to go out and buy a new Ford F-150, and they go out and buy one. There's not as much thinking and planning as going into an EV. It's like, okay, wait, how am I going to charge? Do I have charging at home? Do I need to get that installed? How much is it going to cost? And in the long run, you're saving money. I mean, I'm paying, with electricity bills, I'm paying probably $120 a month to keep both my cars filled up. Maybe less than that in some months, depending on how much traveling I do. Like I said before, I was spending probably together $700 a month in gas. So there is so much savings right there, and I tell people that you got to base it on the savings, and you're going to save so much more money charging at home. And a lot of people stress about, well, we don't have enough DeFi, we don't have enough infrastructure area. That is true, but you only need the infrastructure if you're traveling. And if you're just going around town all day, you don't need a DC fast charger. Now, is it nice to pull into a shopping center that has a level 2 charger? Sure, that'd be great. If there's one around, I'm plugging into it. Because it's most of them are free.
Most of them have
most of them have minimal rates. I think I went to one place here, it was like 15 cents or 25 cents a kilowatt, which was a minimal rate. I was only going to be there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I thought, that's not bad. It gives me, some charge. Where I don't
5
have to
miles,
use it.
10 miles. Yeah.
5 miles. Yeah. So I mean, that's not helping. I mean, I helped a buddy out at, he washes, he's a power washer. I helped him over the weekend, and we washed the electric company's headquarters here in Arkansas. They have a level 2 charge point out front because they have a little bolt that they use to drive around in. It was right in front of the building. I was going to be there for 7 hours helping him. Plugged in, got free charge while I was there. Brought the car home. My wife was like, hey, do I need to plug it in? I'm like, nope, you're good to go. I got you charged before.
Already taken care of.
Already taken care of. We'll save those few dollars for another time. So it's just, I think where I live, it's just a lot of education and clearing up those misconceptions. Because once you do that, then people understand, well, maybe I can get an electric vehicle. Maybe it will work out for me. But you got to do your research. You got to do your planning and things like that. I tell people when you're traveling, it's not like before where you just say, hey, we're going to hop in the car and drive 8 hours and go have some fun. With an EV, you're like, okay, where are we going to charge? Let's plan it out a little bit. And one thing I like about it is it's kind of slowed down our family trips to where we actually take time at our stops and enjoy each other's company, where it may be a 25 or 30-minute stop. We're not running into a gas station, grabbing food, taking it out in the car and eating like we used to. We're sitting down, we're talking, we're stretching our legs. The kids love Buc-ee's. There's a couple Buc-ee's when we travel we get to stop at. They love just going in there, hanging out, taking pictures. Great stops at those places like that. And it just kind of has changed our whole travel philosophy. And, I think that's just what people understand. It helps you slow down a little. And I think
it's
live in a
lifetime. Very fast-paced society. You got to do everything right now. Everything is instantaneous on your phones, and this kind of gets you back into a time when you had to do the travel stop. I recall doing that as a kid on a lot of cross-country trips we took.
You actually sit and eat. I mean, our last trip we took, we were coming back somewhere. We were coming back from our cruise in Houston, and we stopped in Texarkana, and I said, my wife's like, what? I said, I could do like a 20-minute charge here, and then I may have to do like another 20-minute charge in Arkadelphia to get us home, like a 10-minute charge in Arkadelphia to get us home, because it was just short. I was like, or what we could do is, if you're hungry, we'll just stop and eat at the Olive Garden, because there's the Tesla Superchargers at Olive Garden. I said, why don't we just eat dinner here and let the car charge for 45, 50 minutes, and then we don't have to make another stop on the way home. You're like, okay, let's do that. So plugged it in, went and ate our food, came back out. It was like a 98%. I said, all right, we're good to go. Let's hop in and go.
That's a really nice thing, is that you have that opportunity to, hey, let's just switch it up, do something we probably wouldn't have done because we wanted to get somewhere. And it's like, we got to eat. Let's just use this opportunity now is to eat, and we can charge the car at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
I was able to go in, watch some sports on the TV while we were there and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Again, back to it kind of slows you down. But again, that might not be for everybody. Apartment dwellers, I don't know how many there are in Arkansas, but I would assume there are apartment dwellers in Arkansas. And so getting the landlords or the HOAs together to put in even a couple of level 2s, depending on the number of vehicles that might be in that housing complex. I know here in California, I think it's mandatory now that at least new residences must have the capacity to be able to do EV charging. I'm not sure if that's the deal with apartments that are being built. I would have to assume, as progressive California is that something that is also a mandatory requirement now. So that would definitely help going down the road. But getting your current homeowners association or your current community to get some local EV charging in. I don't know about you, but I'm a member of the EV Advocates of America, and there's a Ventura chapter out here that I'm a part of, and that's who we got through to do these EV Earth Day events, and presented our cars to chat with other folks. But if you have that opportunity in your area out there, wherever you're watching, consider joining Plug-in America, Electric Vehicles of America, and
EVA, Electric Vehicle Association. They just
the
had
Electric Vehicle Association.
Yeah.
And
I actually got an award. I actually got an award from them, so I'm excited.
Yes,
to
you did.
work with them. I'm actually excited to work with them because they do some great stuff. Another thing that I noticed too is that what we started doing, and we were a little nervous about doing this, is we started showing up to car shows with EVs. So we're like, this is either going to go real well, or we're gonna get booed out of there. And they have been really, these car shows where you have these big, muscle cars and things like this.
Yeah,
they've been really accepting of us. And it's nice because they have the same questions everyone else has. So they're coming up and looking at our cars because they have questions like, how fast does this go? They're like, oh, the 0-60s in 4 seconds. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's like 4.2, 4.3 on Model Y. It's, some cars do it in like, 2 seconds. They're like, what, 0 to 60 in 2 seconds? Like, yeah, if you have a Plaid, you go, that's the kind of stuff they want to hear. That's the kind of stuff they want to hear. I'm like, yeah, it'll throw you back in your seat if you want to. But, and it's been a great way to educate not only those people who own those muscle cars, which are great, I like muscle cars, but also people who come out to see them. They're like, oh, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's a Tesla. I'm like, oh, or this is a Cybertruck. And I remember we had a huge Little Rock Cars and Coffee here down on the river, and me and my buddy brought a Cybertruck that he was able to get. And it was the talk of the town at the event. Everyone wanted to see what the Cybertruck did.
Yeah, that thing draws crowds, regardless of where it's at. It draws crowds. Yeah.
Yeah, people say, I hate EVs, but that's a cool looking truck. That's what they'll say. They'll be honest with us. I'm not buying an EV, but that's a great looking truck.
That's pretty badass. Yeah.
That's a pretty badass looking truck there. I'm like, it is, but I'll never own one. They're like, oh, I'll never own one. I'm like, that's your prerogative. So I'm just here to educate you. That's all I'm here to do. So
yeah.
Yep.
No. Yeah, so totally agree. Any chance you have the opportunity to educate folks and not condescendingly just saying, this is what this thing does. There's pluses and minuses to it, just like there are with any other thing you buy. There's going to be positives and negatives to it. It just so happens that, you can save some money with this. You can recoup some energy that you can't do once you've burned the fuel in your gas car. So there's some, you can recharge at home, which makes it quite convenient as opposed to having to roll out to a gas station every other day or weekend, depending on how busy your schedule is. But again, there's also some downsides. I think it's getting to the point where the downsides or the positives are outweighing the negatives at this point, I think. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
But you still have people out there that want, they want an EV with 500 or 600 miles of range. And I'm like, you don't need that if you have the infrastructure in place.
Yes.
If you have a DC fast charging station, let's just say every 30 miles on major interstates and state highways, range shouldn't matter. 300-mile cars should be fine. That's what most EVs are now, about 300 miles. So that's fine. Because the only way right now to make EVs more efficient is just to put more batteries on them. The more batteries you put on a car, like for a Silverado or a Hummer, you're just making the car more expensive because
you're adding
the
weight
batteries,
as well.
You're adding weight, and that's the most expensive part of an EV is the battery. So, yes, there's a fine line with the amount of batteries and keeping the car as efficient as possible. A lot of the automakers in China have kind of mastered that, and we're hopefully some of our EVs over here will master that as well. Is trying to get that efficiency to where it needs to be. But if you have the infrastructure in place, 250, 300 miles is all you need.
I would have to agree with that. With our trip up to Willamette, the Audi only does 204. They did a 204 miles range, but they did a software upgrade that gave it an additional 10%, so we were able to get 225 out of it. But on a road trip, your range goes down at the higher speeds. But still, we didn't find us with any issues, going too far or not. Really, I found myself just getting done sitting in the car more than anything else. So, but again, it's just about chatting with the individual, chatting and understanding more about the cars themselves. So ask all the questions, please, if you're interested. Let's take a second now and just you mentioned you guys are doing the podcast, and kind of wrap this up. Is there something about, well, let me ask you this. The podcast itself, can you describe what you guys, other than car reviews, is that all you're doing on the podcast? Can you just kind of just briefly give me a quick description of what the podcast is and how often you guys are available?
So yeah, the podcast started off with basically just getting as much content as possible. The podcast actually started off with, sorry.
Hey Siri, stop. What the heck? I don't know. It just started yapping about Silverado and all kinds of other stuff.
Siri went crazy. You said, yeah, the word that word sounds very sad. I just said it now. My phone started going off. So let me put my on do not disturb as well. So.
So let's start over again with that one.
Sure.
So you guys have your podcast. You guys have been doing your podcast for a little while now, and it's a great show. You guys have some very, very good information coming from that. Can you explain what the frequency is and what your kind of focus is, and see any changes coming in the near future?
So yeah, so it started as the EV Geek podcast, and that's how we got started. Like I said, we started audio for about our first 5 or 6 episodes, and then we got video. But basically, when we first started it, and I say this when we first relaunched it about a year ago, it was basically kind of just a hodgepodge. Like if we would find something interesting to talk about, we'd find like a news article or a news story, and we'd go a little bit more in depth on it. Mm-hmm. And then it started being like, we started out with maybe doing some of our, we did some road trip reviews and things like that. Some road trips I did on my Tesla and checked out the charging infrastructure and things like that. And then as we kind of built up our name in the EV podcasting or EV landscape, we were able to get more guests and things like that. So basically our schedule runs like this now. So on Mondays, like today, we usually do a vehicle review. Okay. So if you think about that, that's 52 reviews we got to do a year. So there's 52 Mondays. That's 52 reviews we got to do a year, and that's a struggle because, especially right now with tariffs, a lot of these manufacturers, for example, Audi. Audi's been trying to get cars in for 2 months now, and they can't get them in.
Yeah.
So, that's the struggle we have. And even with some of the newer models, like the 2025 models, we haven't seen those hit the lots like we should here in Arkansas. Now, in your area in California, you probably have a lot of them. But just to get like a 2025 Ioniq 5 in, we're not seeing them on the lots here in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. So it makes the reviews kind of interesting, but we try to get them in. Actually, we started doing a couple older reviews. Like we would say, hey, let's see how a 2020 Tesla Model S is doing. And we review a Tesla Model S that's a 2020. We reviewed a $6,000 Nissan Leaf just to see how it's holding up. Yeah, there's all these car reviews out there, but for the most part, a lot of people may not be buying new. They may be buying used. So how are these cars holding up after all these years? So that's kind of a thing we focused on too. It's just not reviewing new cars, which is great, but an EV that's 5 years old, or just talking about how my EV experience has been for the last 5 years and things like that. So Mondays are always car reviews. Wednesday is always either a hot topic in the news or a special guest that we reach out to and wants to be in the podcast. So that's usually our Wednesday episode. And then Friday, Sebastian likes doing the news. Mm-hmm. So we'll pick about 3 or 4 topics. Those are usually our shorter episodes. They're usually not longer than 20 or 25 minutes. So we do the Friday Charge from the EV Geek podcast on Fridays. And we talk about 4 or 5, news stories that are out there and give you our opinions. And then at the end of that, we kind of give you a little preview of what we've been driving and what other content has come out and things like that. So that's kind of like how our schedule works. We have a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which is a lot of content for 2 people who work full-time jobs and only do this as a side hustle. But, we make times to plan. We usually plan about 1 or 2 Saturdays a month where we go out and hit the dealerships, and we try to do about 3 reviews each of those days. So if we get it right, we can do maybe 5 or 6 car reviews a month. And that holds us off for a while. And things like that. And then our local podcast episodes are kind of like this one. Our Wednesday episodes, we're sitting down and chatting with someone. You mentioned apartment charging. We actually talked with someone based in California named Pando Electric. Their job is not to install level 2 chargers at multifamily homes. They have a different approach in it. They're actually in the business of charging 1450 outlets at apartment complex.
Provide
which I think is amazing because that's a whole cost. That saves you a whole lot of money on cost on that. I kind of like to see it in action, and he talked about ways that you can regulate charging. So the tenant, the owners of the the lease owners, whatever you call it, the tenants can choose what the charging rate is going to be and take some of that money. So if they want to charge you, the going, for example, here, and this is probably going to shock you, but we pay about 12 cents a kilowatt here for electricity in Arkansas. So if I'm an apartment owner, if I own an apartment complex, if I want to charge 25 cents a kilowatt, I've recuperated some of those costs for someone to charge. So I think that's an interesting philosophy, because you're not having to do upkeeps on the chargers and things like that. And basically, you can set it as a time. You can say, you know what, you get 2 hours to charge every day, and that's it. And you plug in, and the timer starts 2 hours. When you're done, you got to go out and unplug. So I kind of like that. But I do agree with you on that we've got to do something about multifamily homes and commercial businesses as well as that. But those are the nice thing about the podcast is we cover a lot of wide variety of topics. We've just launched YouTube EV Geek Shorts, where we're posting a lot of our short content on as well. We haven't built that page up as much as we wanted to. We're trying to get into a rhythm of recording some shorts while we're out, doing car reviews and things like that, and taking our news episodes and breaking it down into shorts and starting that channel out as well. So done a couple of those too. And then we also started doing with our Wednesday episodes too, a lot of product reviews. So now that we've kind of built up some credibility in this industry, we have EV, people who make EV accessories and EV charging reach out to us and say, hey, you want to review this for us? So now we have the ability to do that. Sebastian just got an Emporia EVSE from Emporia that he was able to install at his house. He hardwired it, so he was able to do a whole video about that. And the whole he could actually go in there. It's really cool. He can actually tell how many kilowatts he wants to send to the car at a time, or how much power he wants to send to the car, and it lets him show real-time data with his entire electricity grid within his house, or electricity usage in his house, of what's using the most and what's using the less. It's a really cool concept from Emporia. And just things like that, NACS adapters and just accessories for your car and things like that. So it's a very broad aspect of EV ownership that we talk about. We talk about everyday use. We talk about car reviews. We talk about charging accessories. We talk about, road trips. So it's a very, if you're into EVs, it's a great podcast to check out from the EV Geek Studios. And we're hoping to eventually, build this and brand this out into multiple channels in the coming years. But right now we're just focusing on our podcast channel. Want to get that, make sure that's solid. And then we just kind of started our EV Geek Shorts channel as well.
Excellent. Sounds like you guys are, well, I can say this as a subscriber to the EV Geek podcast, that I did learn about it was Pando, is that the company?
Yes.
Who is putting in not so much the EV chargers themselves or the EVSEs, but the outlets to be able to allow the landlord or the homeowners or the renters to populate the devices. So that simplifies and lowers that initial cost for that town, that community, that homeowner community. So that's awesome. I would highly recommend, if you're watching this, take a look at the EV Geek podcast. Check out Joel and Spencer. They've got a bunch of great information on their show. The podcast you said comes out on Fridays, is that right? Or each one of these is their own Monday, Wednesday, and Friday?
Yep, Monday is
Wednesday,
car
Friday.
Reviews. Mondays is car review. All of our videos release at 10 a.m. So Monday is car reviews. Right. Wednesday is a special guest or just a random episode. And Fridays is our news of the week. So so those are the 3 days we're doing. Unless we have for example, we had a quick little mini review of the Kia EV6, the upgrades to that, but we were fighting weather and rain. That turned out to be about 10 minutes. That was just a little Wednesday release video as well. So
very cool. So yes, check out the EV Geek podcast. These guys are awesome. And I look forward to seeing more of your guys' content. And I wish you guys a lot of great luck. Again, thank you so much for coming out today and chatting with me about your EV ownership experience. I hope we should have a couple